So yeah, you can use Dynatrace, Datadog, New Relic, any APM monitoring tool of your choice. And then with chaos engineering and also with our experiments, you can really identify how fast those systems, just talk about Dynatrace, are to identify the crash loop. How fast they are really to see that the system is not working as expected. And this type of experiment is quite important because you should be able to see any bad moment earlier as your customer is able to do. So if your monitoring is not configured right and you are in this, let's say, blind mode for a minute or 5, and let's imagine your customer calls you, hey, something is wrong with your system, and you are not already aware of it, that's a bad situation. So with that approach, you can really check how fast Dynatrace is to identify such a problem. And also you can check how fast and well-trained your organization is. So just to see this coming up in your monitoring tool is just one part of the story. But your organization, your system needs to be able to know what's the next step, how to fix the situation. And just rebuilding, restarting anything isn't a good approach. You need to have the right people in place. You need to have the right playbooks in place, and everyone should know what's the next step we need to do. First step is, of course, check if the system under test is covered by your monitoring tool. If not, you shouldn't run an experiment because you're doing it again in a blind mode. If it's part of your monitoring coverage, then start with a service that is a dependency of another service, or like a service which isn't top priority or highly used. It should be something where the impact is not as big as for a customer facing service. Then you can inject like this crash looping, which means, talking about Kubernetes now, the pod is getting in an endless cycle where it's trying to start, crashing, trying to start, crashing. And that is something you can simulate with specific tag from Steadybit. And then you can identify how fast the time between the injection of that crash loop and the time to identify this issue by your monitoring tool is. Normally, you should have implemented any resilience pattern, like a retry, like a fallback, like if that service is not reachable, let's maybe use a caching element, whatever makes sense in your environment.